secondary, with the noise factor up in Seattle, is it anything that you all, receiver-wise, could do to help out Sam and that offensive line a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's important for us to really listen in the huddle when he is talking, try to get as close as we can as possible. And, I always tell the receivers to communicate. Usually the slot receiver is a little closer to the ball. He may hear the snap count or he may get a signal from Sam, and it's on us to relay it to the other two receivers. So just making sure we're in communication constantly. When we're blocking on the perimeter, making sure we're communicating which guy we have. So there's little things that you can do as receivers to make sure your communication is on point to make sure the play is successful.
It's understanding what the play call is and then what the alerts or the checks are. And again, that will all have to be dictated by what's going on with the hand signals. We've played at some pretty noisy places this year for the most part. We've worked a lot, with the no huddles and just using all the hand signals and stuff like that. So that's probably the biggest thing is, everybody's got to be able to pay attention. Everybody's got to be able to see what they see and be on the same page more so than anything else. And the better you are at that, the less likely there will be a mistake or a miss signal or a call or something. And again, as far as our offensive line is concerned, they've just got to be patient and hopefully, we won't have any illegal procedures.
Could you just talk about what you could tell the receivers as far as to help them, even Sam, knowing him yourself, a former teammate of yours?
Yeah, he's an aggressive player, man. He plays with some swag. He's going to talk trash. He'll try to get in everybody's head, man. But, he's a competitor at the end of the day. And, I just wish him the best. And just being able to play against him is awesome.
What do you say about a Seattle team going up to play them? What makes them tough?
Yeah, they're well-rounded all across the board. Their defense plays fast. They've been in the same system for a long time, so they know the ins and outs. They know the weak points. So defensively, they're very good, and offensively, they're explosive. They got three guys on the outside that can play, two good running backs. So, we just got to do our job on offense, score some points, put the defense in good positions as well, and at the end of the day, play a balanced football game.
Tony, let's get right into this, Tony. The Commanders coming off a W with the New England Patriots. And for the second week in a row, Tony, they've got to go on the road again to play the Seattle Seahawks in a stadium, Tony, that is really loud and hard to hear in. And you've been to stadiums like that, Tony, but the Commanders are trying to get back to 500 to get this win, to get to 500. But crowd noise, how tough is that to go up to Seattle, because a lot of the players have not been to Seattle. They don't know how that noise is. And even though Coach Rivera said that Denver was a loud stadium and everything, but how difficult is that, Tony, for a team like a young quarterback in Sam Howell and an offensive line as it is? How tough is that, Tony, for this team this week?
Well, that's the one place that still use their fans as a weapon. And their fans would cheer all during the game. And when you're in that enclosed area, it's very hard to hear in there. I remember when I played there one time, in that big stadium, it was so loud and so many people there that one of our players got claustrophobic. He asked them, could they open the door?
They're compact, Tony. Seattle has a compact stadium.
And then you always hear Seattle, you hear about the rain and the weather. But what I think they have to be cognizant of the fact that this Seattle is not a bad team. And it doesn't matter about being on the road any longer. That's out the bag now. You got a certain amount of games that you need to win if you want to be in the playoffs or even in the conversation. So now you put aside where you playing, who you playing. Only thing you worry about is how you are going to play. And that's one thing that's important about them going to Seattle. Yes, they won against New England. A lot of people say New England was not that good.
They were, because Matt Jones, if it would have been another
but every team is a professional, Donna. And that's how people fall into that trap. They'll say, "Oh, you don't have to play these that hard." And yes, you do.
No, I agree with you, Tony. You got to play them hard, but be for real, Tony. Matt Jones, the quarterback. If it would have been another quarterback, Tony, we probably wouldn't be talking about this Commanders team getting that W, because Tony, he was missing so many receivers wide open and whatever. It was like a bad performance by him. So let's just say that they played a team. They ended up winning it. I'm not going to take it away, Tony, but yeah, better team. we could be talking about another conversation, Tony.
But you know what I think is important, Donna? I think after trading away a couple of their stars and looking at either their people are starting to feel like they're rebuilding, I think they would take the next 3 games, and that would tell us what they're going to do. If they lose all 3, they probably will rebuild. If they lose 2 of them, they'll start rebuilding. And if they win 2 of them, they'll look forward to the future. So that's what we got to hope for. But you can't count 3 games. You got to go to that one game and play it. They need to win this. We don't have to be convincingly. It has to be a team win. Special team, defense, and offense. You got to start developing as a team. That's what we see with this team. Like last week, even against New England, take away the fumble and take away the interception, and they run away with that game. So it's all about the team game. So what they have to do is get all 3 facets of the team on the same page. Get this Seattle, treat them just like they're a playoff team, because right now they are, and play them down to you can't even – you leave everything on the field.
Yeah,
and that's
Tony.
one game.
Yeah, Tony. And the thing about Seattle, even though they got whooped down and beat down by Baltimore the other week, and by far their worst game for Coach Pete Carroll, this Seattle team has won 3 straight games at home. Also at 5-3, Tony, they hold share of first place in the NFC West. And Geno Smith, by far a terrible game last week against the Ravens. But like you said, Tony, this Seattle team is kind of like up and down a little bit also, not knowing what you're going to get from them. And what do you see in Geno Smith as far as the quarterback for Seattle?
I look at him as a quarterback, a veteran quarterback that always was at first began looking at to being a superstar, never really reached that, but reached being a very, very good quarterback within the scheme. And schematically, this coach has put it together, which we know now he must be pretty good, because he did that for Russell Wilson, because he doesn't even look like the quarterback he used to look like when he was in Seattle. So this coach has put it together. So Geno is a perfect fit. That's what I'm looking at. Not just for the going against Washington, for the year. And this coach has taken advantage of this. So when I look at Geno, you got a veteran quarterback, been in big games, been in small games, been on good teams, been on losing teams, but know how to play. And so that's dangerous. All I'm looking at from the Commanders is they go out, play 4 quarters, have all 3 facets of the team helping, and forget about who's gone, who's not there. Only the players on the field is the ones going to help you win. So therefore, you don't worry about the past. You're worried about the right then. You don't worry about the future. So that's what they have to do.
Hey, Tony, because those players that's gone won't help you right now. So, Tony, just Geno last week against the Ravens, and the Ravens defense, the Ravens is #1 probably team right now anyway. So when you look at the Ravens defense, Lamar Jackson said that he thinks that the Ravens defense is probably the best in the NFL. I might argue with that, but they showed that against Seattle. But Geno Smith, they held him 50% of his passes for 157 yards against the Ravens #1 defense. He fumbled, Tony, had an interception in the last 6 games, Tony. Well, he's had 6 interceptions in the last 4 games. So this Commanders defense, if they put a lot of pressure on Geno, and he can be dangerous, they can cause some problems, because he does turn over the ball. But the sad thing is that the Commanders, to me, up front, hasn't been able to put a lot of pressure on the opposing side. So how do you see that if you're not getting the pressure? And now you got 2 young guys as far as Cahill, and then you got James Smith-Williams, and then KJ Henry and Andre Jones are the guys on those ends now. And then you're not getting the pressure from Payne and Allen. So if you don't have the pressure up front to put that pressure on Geno Smith, which is what Baltimore did, how do you play this out as far as the Jack Del Rio's defense that's been underachieving?
You're going to have people coming from different positions. You may have to have a safety come, a cornerback come. I remember back with the Washington Redskins, Darryl Green would every now and then would be one of our blitzers. So that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to shake up the game. And when I speak of games, that's between two defensive players. Okay, say for instance the defensive end and the defensive tackle. They got position they're supposed to be in. I used to tell the defense, I tell Dave Butts, I'm going inside Dave, so he would cover me outside. Then they got to start changing positions like that because they can't just go one-on-one anymore. You lost two of your best pass rushers. But at the same time, if you play with the game, as I said, bring blitzes from different places, you can keep them confused. And that's what Geno, you mentioned the one thing, like the 4 interceptions in the last few games. That was the one thing during his career that has kind of held him back from probably being a superstar. So you know he has a tendency to throw the ball in bad places. So that's what you have to play on. Get as much pressure on him. No matter, bring linebackers, bring safeties, have the defensive line doing games up front, and you got to keep that constant pressure. But first, what you have to do is your offense needs to run the ball and keep their defense on the field.
There you go again, but I agree with you.
And that's what they need to do. That's the beginning. And then special teams are going to have to make field position a priority so they can make that happen. And defense, as you said, lately they have not gotten the pressure that they need. That was even before the 2 players left. And
yeah, Tony, let's stay on that defense for a minute because you talked about shaking up stuff. Let's shake up as far as that secondary of the Commanders team. Their wide receivers for the opposing teams has been torching them, just walking through them like running water, Tony. So when you're talking about if you're not getting the pressure up front on a Geno Smith and dominating that offensive line of the Seahawks, then the secondary has to play well. And we know the linebacker play has not been good for this Commanders team. I'm still thinking about that 64-yard touchdown run last week in New England by Stevenson, where Jamin Davis was out of position and his angles. And the angles to me for the linebackers have been off. And you're talking about bringing safeties up and the corners up and all that. Tony, that in the secondary, it's been so much confusion out there that the wide receivers have been having big productions on them. So how do you counter that when you're not getting good play in your secondary?
Geno Smith is a different quarterback, and when you look at Seattle and Pete Carroll with the teams that he's coached, what is the key for you all defensively this week in facing a team like Seattle that just got walked over by Baltimore last week?
Really just stop the big plays, you know what I'm saying, get off on 3rd down and create turnovers. I feel like if we do those 3 things, we'll come out with the W.
How do you see the secondary going into the 10th game of the season and the things that you all know that you have to improve on, to finish up the season?
I feel like we're coming along. I feel like we're improving, you know what I'm saying, stopping the big plays from happening, and just staying on top of everything and coming up with turnovers. I feel like these past 2 weeks we came up with some big turnovers, so I feel like we just keep doing that. We're going to keep going in the right direction.
What makes Seattle so tough?
In terms of the crowd or
just overall as a team?
A lot of really explosive players, receivers that are really good, a running back that can score any moment. There's a lot of guys who can make a lot of explosives.
You got to put the best players out there no matter who they are, where they come from, or how long they've been here. And that's what they have to do. And just like you said, and you made a point on the television show last week pertaining to them bringing 2 offensive linemen in, and they seem to do better with those linemen in. They need to do the same thing with the linebackers and the defensive backfield. As far as the linebackers, yes, they take bad angles. Davis took a bad angle on that, but he does a lot of other things well. So you just have to learn on that. But
your defense hasn't been doing a lot of things this season well, Tony.
I have to admit that, Donna. I'm gonna tell you what, if the defense had been playing better, they may have a winning record right now. So therefore, when that is happening, but you can't expound on it and keep talking about it, and you've gotten rid of 2 of your better players. So what's next? Is you're gonna start getting rid of some more players or coaches or what? But you got to learn whoever is here to you work together. Excuse me. So what I'm saying is we're making this a lot more complicated than you have to.
Well, they're making it complicated, Tony.
You got to play ball. They came into it with a lot of enthusiasm in the season, new ownership and everything, and then they get a few losses, a few hiccups, and then you get players leaving and stuff. They're in disarray right now, but at the same time, you still can see the tunnel the light at the end of the tunnel for the simple reason. A lot of NFC teams are in the same record that they have, 1 or 2 games better. So they can make hay. But what they have to do is play each and every play and they have to play it like it means that's a play towards the playoffs.
Well, Tony, you look at this Commanders defense ranked one of the worst in the NFL, allowing 27.2 points, Tony, per game and 368.9 yards per game. That is not going to get it done, Tony, because we know that Seattle is going to score points. And this offensive side of the Commanders, they've been putting up, points for the most part, but it's the defense that is allowing so many points. I think they've got 25 sacks on the year. You tell me, that's good total for the sacks total, but it's the points and the yardage that they're giving up, Tony. And like I said, Seattle, they've got a good running back in Kenneth Walker. He may not play this week, injured, and if he can't go, Zach Clark-Bonnet probably would go. But last week, the Ravens was able to shut down the running game. They only had 28 yards, and they've got a good Metcalf, Tony. Do you remember that name for Seattle?
Yes,
Dangerous. DK Metcalf. Well, talk to me
I
about
don't know if we have
stuff.
anyone out there that can even cover him. So, you can't worry. You need the pressure. And yes, Donna, 29 sacks are good for 9 games. And
25, Tony. Don't give them extra.
Oh, I thought you said 29. Okay,
don't be
they're
trying
two
to give
behind.
them extra.
What it is, a team's goal is to get at least 3 sacks a game. So if you got 9 games, they should have 27. They had 25. That's not bad. But then the other side of the ball is at 40 or 42. That's not good. So, you really got to try to get both of those up on the sack. But they get enough sack. But really, the sacks are not all that counts. It's pressure. Pressure is equally as important as sacks. And they need to get more pressure. I see too many plays where guys are fighting up on the line of scrimmage rather than going towards the quarterback. Or either they're taking quick moves and leaving places open. You have to be disciplined in any position you play. And that's what I'm looking at them as a defense. A lot of their fault, they have talent, but they may not have the discipline they need right now. People are taking chances. That's why they felt they could get rid of those 2 guys, because they were going to put 2 young guys in there that they can mold. They can't pass rush as well as Chase or Sweat, but at the same time, they molding these young guys. And they're going to hold on. But if they're molding them, defensive backs and linebackers got to do their job. So we're right back to the defensive unit needs to be repaired right now.
Well, I know one thing. They better take a page from the Baltimore Ravens on DK Metcalf. 1 catch, Tony, against the Ravens. And for the year, 29 receptions, 454 yards, 2 touchdowns. So his number's been down. But if you can limit Metcalf to 1 catch, that ain't gonna be I think the Commanders, but 1 catch, you did your jobs. And the Commanders right now, Tony, defensively 28th in the league, scoring 30th, and also passing defense 27. Tony, they at the bottom of the barrel almost.
That's what you can't understand. They have the talent, and that, you know what? Every time you speak, you're really telling these individuals, the fans, why they got rid of those 2 players. Because if they go in there and they look at what they're paying these guys, and they look at where they are as a team, and they look at they just gave 2 defensive tackles a lot of money, they're saying, well, somebody gonna have to go. We got to build this team back up. They're good players, but we need to do that. So that's what they've done. So they've started to make the adjustment. But one thing you said, with the people that you have on this team, you should never be at a 27 or a 28 when you got that many number 1 draft choices. But if you want to look at it, you've lost 3 of your number 1 draft choices in the last 2 years. You've traded 2 and 1 went to another team. So why is that? So what you have to look at, the whole combination of what has been transpiring over the last 4 or 5 years. What have you done? What have you built? It's always been a quarterback situation. It's always been the offensive line has been okay until they start losing people. Defense is what they roll. But here they are right now needing to ride the defense, and defense don't have any gas.
Hey, Tony, and what you're saying basically is the front office has not got it right as far as their personnel over the last 4 or 5 years or so. And Tony, back to Seattle. They faced, as far as the top defenses for the last 3 weeks, Baltimore, the Browns, and Cincinnati, and their top 10 defenses, those 3 teams, and Washington Commanders is not that, Tony. But let's transition to the offensive side of the ball. Tony, this week and last week, John Allen said that they think that they got the quarterback in Sam Howard. He's thrown for over 300 and some yards the last 2 games. And I know you think that, and everybody else, that this team passes too much, but it's probably a reason why as far as that goes. But because Sam Howard is kind of like tops with 247 passing yards, which is he leads the NFC in that, Tony. And the last 2 games he's passed, like I said, for those 300 and some yards, 29 of 45, 325 against the Patriots, and then the loss against the Eagles, he was 39 of 52, 397 yards. Tony, in your opinion, have they found the long-term quarterback for this Commanders team? Because Sam, you can see him getting better each week with some of the things that he does, and he still makes, quite a few mistakes for a rookie quarterback, but you can see that he's moving in the right direction. Is this a long-term quarterback for this Commanders team?
I wouldn't go that far for the simple reason Eric Bieniemy has delivered an offense that's good for this quarterback. So, people will figure it out. So he will have to improve. So I can't go into the future and say, this is the guy. But the way he's picked up this offense, he has an opportunity to be the guy. That's within the position on the field, Donna. You can look at him, and a lot of times right now, these young players are paid for potential. A lot of times you never see that potential. Did we see with Chase Young, who was marketed as being the best defensive player to come out in years, and we never got the opportunity just to see the full package after the first year. We look at Sweat having a great year, doing everything right, but he still got traded. Why? Is it something we didn't know or something went on? So what you're looking at with your quarterback, you know that the coordinator has made this offense for him. So saying that he's the quarterback of the future, he has shown signs that he could be. But at the same time, when he can master any kind of offense, anything that Eric Bieniemy puts in, then you're starting to look like a franchise quarterback. That's what you have to do. And franchise quarterbacks come from many different places. I remember before Joe Theismann got the opportunity to be the quarterback here, he asked him to let him catch punts and everything, whatever he could do, or punt the ball. He just wanted to be on the field. Once he got on there, Joe Gibbs, that's when they started this called the dash. That's where the quarterback goes out to the corner, the guards and the center go out and block him, and he rolls out and he passed. That was so good. That was so good for our team at the time. That's what they're doing now. They're developing where his strengths are, making it where he doesn't hold that ball too long, and giving him an opportunity to make plays.
Well, you talk about making plays. Since this offensive line has inserted 2 new players in their center, Tyler Larson and Chris Paul, since inserting them in for the last 2 games, they had given up 44 sacks, Tony. And I know we said that any sacks, but they've lessened that number. And in the last 2 games, they only allowed 4 sacks, because before these 2 guys were in, they were giving up 5 to 6 sacks a game. So you see improvement on the offensive line too, because Tyler, Coach Rivera talked about the reason why this guy has been so valuable in these last 2 games, because he's reading Sam and he's moving to the areas with Sam, and being that veteran that he is, he's basically picking up things that wasn't being picked up before with the old guys in. So with this improvement with this offensive line, and of course, I'm not saying that they don't need to draft offensive linemen, because they do. How have you seen the improvement overall in helping Sam, and also those wide receivers last week in New England? They really did some things to help Sam, because they made some plays. They kept running through routes, and Gary talks about this all the time, is when things break down, the receivers have to keep running so that Sam can find them and the play doesn't break down. So how have you seen the offensive line, and also how key those wide receivers are going to be in this coming week in Seattle with the noise and all of that?
I look at the receivers, and they have a couple of receivers that can be all pro potential. So they'll go the way the quarterback goes or the way the game plan goes. I look at the offensive line, you said they've only given up 4 sacks. That's too many.
In the last 2 games, Tony.
That's too many. I don't care. That's still
hey, after you gave up 5 and 6 in previous
They
days?
beat this man down. It's time for them to protect him. and that's
Yeah,
what they
you're right,
get paid
Tony.
for. But they
You're
have
right.
improved. The short pass seems to work better for this offensive line. So until they get to where they can hold blocks longer, that's a good thing. So I've seen improvement there. The only thing I'd like to see more of is running the ball. Donna, I know you hear me reiterate that a lot of times, but the one thing I've always felt, the foundation of your team is toughness, and toughness is running the ball and making that
In
other
the
team.
trenches.
Don, I played in over 200 games, and I can tell you each and every game I hated most. I can remember a Monday night game against Miami. They almost made me retire. When they had Kick and Zonka, and they ran at us, and they just ran us out of the stadium. That's when I was Chicago. So I'd like to see this team become that. They got the kind of running back that can do that. Now, as we said on the show, he's not a fancy running back, but he will run over you, and he will run through. He'll do a lot of great things. So they have to. That's another thing that you got to get you got to fit the personnel. They got to get him more involved in this game. They see he can even catch the ball and stuff. They just look at him being a tough runner, but get him more involved. That's why Gibson is looking so good because, as I said, he's a Kansas City type running back. He can do a little bit of everything, so that's why they're improving. But back to that offensive line, they're going to start seeing themselves play better, and they will play better. But until that time, everybody has to play as hard as they can.
Yeah, Tony, because when you look at Seattle's defense, their secondary has struggled, but they're pretty good because Quan Martin, that got the interception to help the Commanders win last week, his teammate in Illinois is Devon Weatherspoon on the other end, and he was talking this week about what makes this guy so great and giving us some tidbits of what the Commanders receivers could do. And they got Wooten, and they've got Adams, Diggs, safeties. So they've got a pretty good secondary also. And then remember that Seattle went out during the trade deadline and got Leonard Williams from the Giants as far as to help that defensive front. So how does this all play out for this Commanders, knowing that what you got on that side of the ball, because they're going to bring the pressure with that Pete Carroll's defense. You know, they were known in the past about being the defensive boom. And that's not them right now, but they're not bad, as a defensive unit. And with Leonard Williams, what is your thoughts on that defense for the Seattle?
Well, I think that Carroll always puts together a good defense, and they talk about his offense, but if you think about it, over the years that they were participating in being in the Super Bowl or going or whatever, they always had a great defense. And you notice now they even take the same numbers that they had on those guys back then and they put them on the guys now. He makes his defenses all look. He always get a dominant linebacker. He always get a shutdown corner. He always get a defensive lineman up front. One tackle that can rush, one can play the run. The two ends got to bring the pressure. And he that's his formula for doing it. I think it's going to be tough for the Commanders. But what they have to do, I don't care who you have in there. If you run the ball and run it enough, everybody gets a little bit tired. And that's what they need to do.
Well, Tony, you know what? I'm going to shout out to the special teams unit of the Commanders because Tressway was named the special teams player of the week again for the NFC. And this is his fifth honor, Tony. And this is a guy that for the Commanders special teams, he's been consistent game in and game out, year in year. And also they're improved, Tony, with Antonio Gibson, because the way he ran that ball against New England and since then, as far as the kickoff returns, and also Jamison Crowder, who they got back, this special teams has started to be in the conversation and helping this team. And this week, Tony, how huge is that? And we're going to hear from Tressway also about the honors, but how huge is this special teams, particularly in this game?
Whenever, and it's not just this game, it's any time. As we have said during the course of that television show, you got three facets. All of them must do something to help win. You got the offense, defense, and special teams. We got two return men now that can break it off anytime. We didn't have that earlier in the year. You got a kicker that's been good for years. So right now, you're starting to look for big plays. I always remember when we were playing the Raiders before we went to the second Super Bowl, they got ahead of us. And the special teams coach went out and said, Mike Nims, bring it back, get us in position. That's what he did. So what I'm saying is you have to be able to expect and plan on special teams making you at least 1 to 2 big plays a game. We have that now. That's going to be helpful in Seattle. Mark my word, Donna. You can say, he said it, you watch, special teams is going to play. Now, I'm not going to say.
I'm pulling out my pen and I'm going to mark that
I'm
word.
not going to say it, but they're going to be a factor on Sunday. You heard it here
Well,
first.
Tony, as you say, because we got to wrap it up. As you say, we don't say.
We never say goodbye. We say in the minute.
In a minute.
Tress, once again, honors are coming your way.
Yeah. I would like to take the time to inform the people that there was more than a few punts in the game. A little windy, a little chilly, didn't have great hang time. But our young dudes and the guys that are new to the punt team, I mean, they absolutely killed it. So in meetings today, whenever Coach announced it, I told them, I go, boys, steaks on me, dinner on me. You guys definitely covered your butt off, so I appreciate it big time.
And so since I'm the first one interviewing you, I get to come for the steak dinners too, right?
Yeah, you're in. Yeah.
This isn't easy. This is your 5th honor. Just talk about just what that means to you.
Yeah, I think if I was to go back in each individual one and break down each game, I could tell you the wind, I could tell you the punts, and I could tell you just about every single time there's been some dudes flying down. And my favorite part of the things like Chris Rodriguez, like C-Rod goes down and makes a ridiculous play for his first tackle on special teams. Like, that's just no accident. That's just the culture we're trying to build, that special teams room, how Coach Nate has had us going for years, especially even on the punt team, trying to make a play whenever our number gets called. That is the stuff that's really fun to be a part of. And so that's why I tell the guys, I'm like, hey, man, I get the award. Don't get me wrong. I'm pumped I get the award, but I'll make sure and buy you a steak or get you a drink on me. So, yeah.